Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Modern Investing on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today we have Dr. Milan Sambarak. Welcome to the show, Milan.
Thank you for inviting me, Sasha. Delighted to be here. I hope I can contribute something.
We all hope it's about time. And we have also Jim Eid from Eid Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Hi, Sasha. Great to be here, but I won't give you a softball like that.
Well, listen, last week was probably the most tremendous week. I'm talking about upside on the markets. They were just exploding and still continues on today. I don't know how long that explosion will last. To tell the truth, I'm not that optimistic on that, especially when you see that a lot of retail people now came back to the market, and when they're buying stocks like SMCY, well, somebody's selling the stocks.
Oh, he's feeling feisty today.
But it's fine. Let's enjoy it until it lasts. Maybe another day or two, maybe another week or two. Who knows? But it's overextended. My feel is that it's overextended, but it can get even more overextended next day. So let's enjoy it while it lasts. What can I say? In fact, last week, my fund portfolio, I destroyed the portfolio. There is no more portfolio. There is only three stocks: NVDI, NVDY, NVIDIA, and SMCI. That's where you get all your money. And return from that 1 week was incredible. I'd say I made about 60% net profit from all that. Wow. Believe it or not. Yeah, so it's worth it. I mean, I respect S&P 500 strategy. It's very sound, and over time it's going to work. But how much time you need to invest in SPY to generate 60% net profit? We are talking about years. We are talking about dozens of years, and here you do it in 1 week. So strange things are happening. And by the way, Milan, congratulations to you on this last chess tournament. It was a tremendous success. It was extremely enjoyable, and I would recommend getting more side events. Your cocktail party is a must. It's very popular. So you get, 30 people, 60 people, 90 people. It doesn't matter. Everybody enjoyed it last year, and also I would add also a blitz tournament in one of the evenings. Maybe second day to have a blitz tournament. So you have rounds 10 and 3. So
I'll make a note of that and talk to.
Sure. You can make a blitz tournament at 7. So it will last 2.5, 3 hours. To enjoy it.
Well, thank you for your suggestions, and thank you for participating. And yeah, we will have a cocktail party next year at our condo. It'll be crowded, but it's okay. We can make it, and you can play the piano. And
I will. I already start practicing. Yeah. Okay. So about investing. So what can I say? Enjoy it while it lasts, and I don't know how long it will last. Maybe it's about time to sell covered calls in these positions that I have. Premiums are astronomical, so maybe it wouldn't hurt probably. I'm reluctant to sell these positions because they still have a room to run, and I don't want to miss it. But covered calls with the premiums that they're offering, I think it's a sound strategy.
Selling covered calls in a rising market is a mistake.
At the beginning, yeah, okay. When you take position, and most of the people, they are buying stock and selling covered calls simultaneously, and you're right. I wouldn't recommend that in a rising market. But when you already got the juice out of your position and you still hold it and you don't want to sell because it can still run. But now you're becoming more cautious. Now it's time to sell covered call, and you will get much more money for your covered calls than if you would do it simultaneously by buying stock and selling at the same time. So this is, but again, this is just what I'm doing. I don't recommend it.
You know, J.P. Morgan, when they asked J.P. Morgan, I think in the late 19th century, what the markets will do, he said they will fluctuate. What he should have said is they will fluctuate as they continue to rise. Because that's what's been happening. You know, I mentioned before, the stock market was first founded in Amsterdam about a little over 400 years ago. And every decline, without exception, was followed by a return to former levels and continuing rising. So JP Morgan could have said they will fluctuate as they continue to rise. The other thing is we have to stop thinking short term, which people who pick stocks do. We recommend against picking stocks, rather choose the American market as a whole, the U.S. economy as a whole, by buying an exchange-traded fund that tracks the S&P 500. And of the various exchange-traded funds that do that, there are about half a dozen of them, SPY is the best. And so that's thinking long-term is really the way we should be thinking, even though most people who buy stocks are checking the market maybe every hour. Pointless.
You know, there's a big difference between, for example, S&P 500 and for example, Triple Q, which is Nasdaq. There is a company by the name United Healthcare, and when that stock going down 20%, it brings down all the market like S&P or like Dow Jones, which is part of it. But Nasdaq is unaffected by that because it's not part of Nasdaq. So there's merits of which ETF you're buying. In this case, the Triple Q way better than any other indexes. But I'm not criticizing your strategy. So if you can make in 1 week 60%, but probably with a risk, probably, and then you can make without risk 60% in, say, probably 15 to 20 years. So what's if you're a long-term investor? So why would you care?
We
you're 60% anyway.
We talk about investing in SPY, which tracks the S&P 500, rather than the Nasdaq, because Nasdaq fluctuates more. It's riskier.
Yes, agree.
Yeah, so that's why we.
It's so scary. You don't know what is riskier, S&P or Nasdaq 100. It's quite. Jim, what are your thoughts about merits?
Well, the market hates uncertainty. We all know that, and the market is very jittery. Companies can't plan for the future because they don't know what Trump is going to do. So Trump threw a monkey wrench into the global world economic system, and everybody is wondering what to do. And I have finally figured out what to do, and it's to figure out what Trump is interested in. What will profit Trump? And that's what's going to go up. And we see this deal with China. It's because Trump's friends are putting pressure on him because they're losing money with these tariffs against China. So now he's done a 360 or 180 rather, thinking about, okay, we're going to have some good, solid trade relation, a fair trade relationship with China. And that is one of the most important relationships in the world. And so that is going to bolster the economic systems throughout the world if China and the U.S. can have normalized trade relations. So
James, Canada has been America's biggest trading partner for a very long time, and vice versa. So keep that in mind.
Yes, but I'm not sure Trump's friends are being affected by Canada's tariffs and as much as they are China's. Because, like, for example, Apple and people like Apple were given an exemption early on by Trump because their business depends on China. And you can't afford to have Apple, in trouble. So although Apple did go down today, Well, NVIDIA and MRVL have gone up. AMD is also getting a lot of strong support. But my point is, Trump is getting a free jet. His sons are made billions off of his names. They're on the inside. Elon Musk will profit somehow. The people that know what Trump's going to do, which is going to be whatever is in Trump's self-interest, how can he profit? So we haven't had a president that's working like this. But if we know what he's going to do, and it's pretty easy to figure out what's in his best interest, and that's what's going to go up. And the things that he doesn't care about, for example, the poor, and research into health, for example, is getting clobbered. All the headlines in Silicon Valley are about all the defunding of grant research and all of that sort of thing. That's not going to be restored because it's not hurting Trump's friends, Trump's business friends. And I call it friends in quotes because they're only it's transactional relationships. Can you make money off of this deal? What can I get from you? If I give you something, I want something in return. These are his friends. So, but they are powerful because they are like Elon Musk, billionaires. So these people have a lot of say. And so we really have kind of an oligarch society rather than a democracy running the show right now. And what's going to benefit them is what's going to still make a lot of money. And what doesn't interest them is going to be punished. And so the problem I see is that his friends, the people that are going to profit, are the top 1%.
Jim, don't you have a feel that with huge U.S. debt of 37 trillion and counting, it's not the end of story, and there are substantial liabilities on Medicare, on social insurance, and everywhere.
Of course.
I think that defunding the healthcare and research, it will automatically lead to elimination of a lot of sick, old people that will help to reduce U.S. liabilities substantially. And that's probably, it hasn't been exactly formulated this way, but I think that's exactly
it's not a popular way to say it, but that's what he is doing.
That's exactly. So the less there will be older, sick, poor people around. So somehow, ideally, they may all disappear. There will be none left.
That's what Hitler did. That's what Hitler did.
Exactly.
And smokers are wonderful for the economy because they pay more in taxes by buying cigarettes, and they die an average of 10 years earlier than the average, so you don't have to look after them. Ideally, get more people smoking.
Maybe we'll see advertising on TV again for cigarettes.
Have a smoke, enjoy.
I'd rather fight than switch.
Yeah.
So these are very serious things that have changed what America stands for. We used to take care of the poor. Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. That used to be America. And Trump and Elon Musk's America is a very different country.
Yes.
And, it's not a country that you can be as proud of because it's transactional and it's all about what can I get from you? And his tariffs were just essentially the bully the big bully in elementary school taking your lunch money. He wanted to force people to make deals that benefited the United States and hurt them. And he thought that he could get away with it. But China didn't say, okay, here's my lunch money. They punched him in the nose.
Wait a sec, but there is no deal with China. It's been postponed for 90 days. So
there's a ceasefire on the tariffs.
Okay, he put some fires. Okay, so the market went higher last week or so. But then where is the meat? Where are all the lineup of 90 countries willing to come to Mar-a-Lago and kiss his
If it
ass
rang, yes.
and begging for signing deal? Where are all those deals?
Do they have to call him Godfather too? I'm not sure.
Okay, he went to Middle East, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, and so on. So remember, the president of the biggest democratic country in the world is not going to Europe. He is not going to even Israel. No, he understands that by going directly to these countries, he will get beautiful 747 worth $500 million or so on. If he would go to Israel first and then Qatar, then it wouldn't be 747 plane. It would be much lesser, much smaller plane.
A helicopter.
Now, hell with Israel. I want my 747. Here I am. I didn't go
Just
to.
think, what would a grifter do? And that's how you can predict what Trump will do. It's all a grift as far as he's concerned. And, you look at that and his mentality, the people around him, what they are interested in, and bet on that. You're going to be successful in this market. I still think that the Silicon Valley has been hit, but has recovered. NVIDIA is right back where, not quite, its all-time high was like 170 or something like that.
153.
153. Okay, so it's at what 135, 134 now. These kinds of companies are going to be okay too, because it's a necessary. They're essential to the market's function. They're essential to the economic system now.
Yeah,
it's like manufacturing used to be. These kinds of companies are in our national self-interest, in our national self-defense interest. So they can't be.
James, what did you say about Apple?
Well, Apple, I think, is fine. Apple took a hit because of the China business, but then they got a pass, a parental, a hall pass from the president, and so they're doing okay. And they bounced back. They took a big hit from like 250 to 180 or something like that. They're back over 210 now. Will they get back to where they were? I don't know. But I think that Apple, again, its main source of supply, it comes from China. And as long as that's not going to be clobbered by this tariff nonsense, then I think Apple will be okay too.
Here's something interesting. Fortune magazine has named Apple as the best run company out there. Apple has a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines.
It's always a good thing.
Because they're all expecting the market to tank, which it has to. We don't know when, but it is hugely overpriced now, and it has to go down in order to bring it down to its former levels. So Apple's got a lot of cash, and Warren Buffett has got a lot of cash. Should individual investors have a lot of cash? Well, maybe not, because by having, let's say, SPY and selling covered calls on it, we can make money before the market collapses. And when it does, we know that it will recover someday. Meanwhile, we're always making money selling puts and calls.
Yeah, your strategy, I think, is a very good example of modern investing. You couldn't do it with an expiration date of the same day in 1990s.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. And so I do think that there is cause for optimism, but there is also, if you are, let's say, the upper middle class and up will be okay, and those below that level are going to be hurting like they haven't been hurting in a long time. The goods and services that they rely on to make it day to day are going to be stripped away, and they're going to Trump and Musk are going to be thumping the bully pulpit saying how good they are at cutting costs. And they're not cutting the costs of the wealthy. They're cutting the costs of the average middle class and the poor.
Empires have 100% failure rate. And the, 18th century, let's say, belonged to France. The 19th century belonged to Great Britain. The 20th century belonged to the United States. will it end one of these days? The empires have a 100% failure rate. The American empire will fail someday. When will that day come?
One of
Well,
the things that have happened to these empires is revolutions. And,
Yeah.
and
not
you see that happen.
necessarily. Jim, if you remember history of the Roman Empire, it didn't fall to a revolution. It was getting weaker and weaker by years, even by centuries, if you will. So far, we started with the German tribes, and then East Goths and West Goths, and so on and on and on. I don't want to go into history, but with the United States, something reminds me that growing debt of 37 trillion and farther, it's going to go much farther than that. Even by next year, I'm expecting it definitely will go over 40 trillions a year, and all the liabilities and Medicare and so on. I'm not so sure anymore about the United States being unscathed, and therefore S&P 500 will always recover, and it's still a premier vehicle, or so on. I'm looking at macro factors that move certain stocks, and that's a remedy. I mean, for those people who don't want to follow stocks and they're too busy with some other things or so on, okay, they are free to do anything what they want. They can sell all their portfolios, get into bonds, and they will have enough money for retirement anyway. But other people who want to see success in investing, they have to do something very differently. And before, I was definitely putting a lot of attention to stock selection, selling covered calls, selling puts, money covered puts, and with the fluctuations like we experience. But again, this is some kind of one-time event. Like I remember, if you remember COVID, when market tanked, and now we have even something worse than COVID. It's Donald Trump. So I'd rather have another COVID than Donald Trump, frankly.
Pandemic.
So yeah, exactly. So we had to go through Donald Trump's collapse of the market and then recovery. Same as with COVID. So you still have to really watch what's happening on the market, what affects the market.
When we look at a company and we see it has a lot of debt, we tend to shy away from it. So I think we can say the same thing about a country. I was always amazed the U.S. would issue bills and people would buy them. And so we kept saying on this show and everywhere else to invest in the U.S. dollar. It was the strongest currency, blah, blah, blah. And people would buy it. The Japan and China own a lot of debt, of U.S. debt. And, what if they stop buying it and stop refining it?
What if they will keep selling it?
Yes.
Well, now this year, U.S. has to refinance $9 trillion just this year. So who are the buyers of this $9 trillion worth of debt instruments? I'd like to see who is going.
This is the way. And also, the Romans suffered a lot of small revolutions because they spread all through. But we won't have to debate history. But the German revolutions turned into invasions because they occupied a lot of land and they lost it slowly, as you said.
The interest on the debt now, interest payments on the debt, is greater than the United States spends on the military. And how long can it keep going that?
It's unsustainable. And the cuts that I believe that you have to do both raise revenue and cut costs. Exactly. And this is a way to balance it again. It's last balance under the Clinton administration. But they're not thinking about raising revenue with taxes to the wealthy, for example. Shudder to even think about that. But they're cutting the costs, but they're not cutting the costs of the wealthy. They're cutting the costs, and they're concentrating on things like canceling research into things that would provide better health. People would live longer and collect Social Security. So this is not what they want. They want those people to die.
Do the school kids get lunches now?
It depends, Milan. It definitely depends. And and that is one of the areas that's
You're gonna-
education is another area that is going to be feeling the ramifications for years, and so they don't believe in educating. They certainly don't believe in educating the poor. And this whole anti-diversity type of thing, and the whole wokeness business. This is just noise. Pay no attention to it. But it's their excuse for cutting, and the cuts again are not hurting the well-to-do. Even the upper middle class is going to hardly feel these things. But the people that are going paycheck to paycheck, they will definitely feel it, because grocery prices will go up, and grocery stock, they will not have the items stocked on the grocery shelves anymore, because these interrupted the economic distribution system. So we're countries that Mexico and Canada are prime examples of this. And auto companies are being hurt by this. Will he get enough pressure from people in the auto industry to, ease that and do away with that? He could change his mind on a dime. So what he says today, he can contradict it tomorrow and suffer no consequences.
There's major decline in tourism into the United States. Canadians are hardly going to the States anymore. Europeans are not going to the States. So the drop in tourism is significant, and the tourist industry is one of the major ones.
Yeah, the hotels, all of them, I'm sure, but hotel prices have just skyrocketed. I'm thinking of going to New York City, and I have hotels that I like, and their prices are much steeper than they used to be. That's just one man's experience, but I think that's a generalizable one.
Yeah.
Yeah, situation is really. One hand, you're making 60% a week. On the other hand, it's tremendously high pressure on what to do next. You don't want to short this market. That's for
And you
sure.
have to stay on your toes.
So you have to get on your toes. You really have to watch every move. Well, the good thing is I'm going to Europe for 3 weeks, so I will be.
Have fun.
I will be a little bit out of circulation, and so we will continue after my comeback. I think in June.
Where else can you invest? Where else can you invest? This show is called Modern Investing. Where else can you invest? Of course, there are places, but where else would you recommend investing? Let me tell you.
Number one investment is your mattress. That's number one. Very safe. Doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
Just buy a big new mattress, and if you need, buy two for the price of one sometimes.
Well, I think Milan's strategy that he's outlined numerous times on the show is a safe one, and I think that will continue to be safe. I think that the strategy that I've adopted is to look at a sector that is going to generate revenue, and that is not laden with debt, and it has revenue on the horizon. I think those companies are still safe, because unless that revenue goes away, for example, if he raised tariffs that hurt NVIDIA, if he did something, just a presidential executive order that hurt a company like NVIDIA, then there goes my strategy. I'm out.
Jim, I can tell you one thing. What else is going on? In case of NVIDIA, for example, it's a pure and simple extortion. The Trump is saying, okay, I can make tariffs here and there, and I can do your life miserable. However, if you will invest $500 million in some kind of plan that will start producing chips in maybe 10, maybe 15 years' time, but you commit to invest $500 million, that's the end of story. There will be no more tariffs. Nothing will touch you. So what Nvidia says? Of course, Mr.
Yeah.
Khan, here is $500 million. Nobody does anything. Nvidia didn't invest any $500 million, and I'm not sure that they will ever will, but they agreed to the concept. So now Trump, with Nvidia and Apple and whoever else,
Zuckerman, yeah.
so now he is running around and saying, look, I'm bringing in billions, trillions of dollars. This company has committed, and that company has, and there are 10 more companies, and there's a TSM, and there's a Chinese company, and there's everyone. They are in line to invest in United States of America.
Yeah.
So-
See what is profitable to Trump, and you know what will be profitable in the future,
Good
the
point.
near future
Yeah,
of the United
good point.
States.
Now, can you invest, if you know what you're doing, can you invest in things like stamps and coins? If you invest in those things effectively, you can make money. Here's a
Yeah, that's outside my area of expertise. You know, I have never been interested in doing that. The only thing I collected was first editions, and I used to go to bookstores hunting for them. But now with the internet, you can go online and buy them. So all the fun went out. And you know, I think that those are alternatives if that's your area of interest. So
here's a charming story. This 8-year-old boy is carrying his teddy bear during the Second World War, and a German officer calls him over, and he says, "How old are you, son?" And he says, "I'm 8 years old." And the German officer says, "Yeah, I have a son who is 8 years old. His name is Hans." So they talk back and forth, and ultimately this 8-year-old boy with a teddy bear gives his teddy bear to the German officer, and he says, "Please give them things." The teddy bear was full of valuable stamps. The family, which was fleeing Czechoslovakia, had put all their wealth into stamps because they understood stamps, and put them in the teddy bear so that nobody could get them. And off they went to Hans in Germany.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, Milan. I do have a quick question. I've been listening to y'all off and on and everything like that. And it's an investment question, but it's corporate investments and all along those lines. What do y'all think as an investment tool of arts organizations using endowments and all along those lines? And will we get a Trump endowment and all in that space? Well, maybe Trump's going to start his own endowment, but what do y'all think of endowments as a investment tool for corporations, whether they be nonprofits or arts or any other sorts?
Well, I haven't thought about that, but I know that the university endowments, Harvard is the biggest one on the planet. The best run one has been Yale's with David Swenson, whose endowment performed better than anyone on the planet. And he said the best thing to do for investing is to have an asset allocation. Pay attention to that more than to individual stocks. And if you have an asset allocation, my wife and I have a 50-50 asset allocation. 60-40 is also good, and 45-55, any of those, so long as there's a lot of money there. Wall Street doesn't like that because they don't make any money on the cash part of your asset allocation.
Well, one of the things I learned, and Jim and Sasha, you'll find this fascinating because my mom was in that field, and there's some arts organizations that I'm part of that are thinking about starting them. But apparently, in order to have a good endowment, you actually have to make a lot of money because it's really the interest is what they are giving their money out for on the endowment. So if you want $1 million in endowments, you really need $10 to $20 million in the bank because it's the 5 to 10% investment of the interest is what is getting out.
Arts, and we can take chess as an example. St. Louis is now the mecca of chess in the United States, and it's because of the endowment of one billionaire. And so a lot of artists rely on those types of things. My goddaughter just got an endowment, a grant from the state of Massachusetts for her art. But it's not really something you can invest in.
Good point and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess you don't put all your money in, you have to have
in one teddy bear. Yeah.
Yeah. You're talking about asset allocation, half cash, half stocks. So that perfectly works in my situation. My wife has all cash, 50% of assets, and I have 50% stock only options and so on. So that's how we do asset allocation.
Well, we got one thing.
Milan,
can't
we
hear me?
cannot hear you. We can't hear you. So another things regarding asset allocation, for example, don't invest all your money in violin. Split it between violin and bow. So you need both to play. So put half of your money in violin, half of
Yeah.
your money in bow. So this is really funny. But I think, investing now becoming so individual, so specialized. All the long-term investment, I think, is gone by now. I don't think any serious advisor can still talk about, oh, you have to invest for long-term,
Buy and hold. Yeah.
buy and hold, and so on. Especially for older people, it's complete nonsense. And even for younger people, basically with all the fees and everything what else, you'll be lucky to get your money back in 3 years.
I think, like what I do is I have a target, and I sell at that target. Say something, Milan.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, carry on.
And so, and if I stay disciplined, that's been working extremely well. And that's one thing that I would emphasize for investors is be disciplined. Whatever it is that you've set out to do, stick with it. And don't get emotional. Don't get attached to a certain stock or a certain rate of return. And understand that if a stock has done really, really well, that's not the time to buy it. It's too late.
In 4 words, I can tell people how to outperform the vast majority of investors, professional ones included after fees. In 4 words. The 4 words are buy and hold SPY. That will be the vast majority of investors, including professional ones, over the long term. So,
But you have a little spiciness to that equation too, because you're buying and selling puts and calls. And
well, yeah, okay, that can increase the productivity, the outcome. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. If you do it correctly, selling calls in a rising market is a mistake, for example, and so. Canadian investors are not allowed to sell puts in their tax advantage accounts, so they need to open a margin account for that. And you can lose more than 100% of your investment in a margin account. So you have to be careful what you're doing there.
very hard to do, but it can be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still see this as having some this rally, and I agree that it is short term because it depends on what the next whim of Trump is. And the market will react to it. But instead of reacting, I think you act and you predict what Trump is going to do. Now, you say he's unpredictable. No, you just follow the money. What will profit him? And what will make him feel like he can brag?
Jim, what worries me is that United States, by ignoring Europe, getting cozy with all those dictatorships in Qatar and Saudi Arabia and all those countries, America itself will become a despotic, oligarch-run country where there will be very little democracy, if any. And therefore, all this concept of investing in America as the best democracy and a long-living democracy that will never decline or will decline maybe 500 years later, which doesn't affect, of course, us and most of the people, if not all of the people. So it's becoming America, as we go along with Trump at the helm, it's becoming the more and more riskier proposition for many, many reasons.
I think it is possible in our future, which I only used to see in wartime movies, is that we will be asked to show our papers at some point. We're loyal to Trump. We've signed a loyalty oath, something like that. That might be in our future. It's unthinkable to people like myself, but I've had to rethink what the unthinkable is based on the United States reelected this guy. So
Yeah.
I can't predict the future of this country.
One third of the eligible voters did not vote.
Mhm.
You know, about a third more or less voted for Trump, about a third more or less voted for Kamala Harris, and 1/3 did not vote. What does that tell us? People who don't vote tend to be sort of happy with the situation is, but that's probably
I
not.
disagree. I think they're apathetic. I don't think they care.
Oh,
They don't think their vote matters. And
yeah,
that
you're right.
message is gone, especially to the younger generation.
Yeah.
And it's very depressing to me to contemplate this because, people have fought and died for the right to vote. It was extended even to women in the early 20th century. It's precious. And the ability to vote is now people just, they don't care. So you see this apathy spread across the United States, and 1/3 doesn't surprise me. It used to be the older people were more solid in coming out and voting, and the younger generation always lagged behind. But it's accelerated in recent years, and it's hard to convince a young person to get involved in a campaign and do all the things that they used to do, and were the driving forces of many campaigns, and that lack of motivation and energy is depressing. And it's still money has bought so many politicians that people have a right to be apathetic. They think that big money is calling the shots. What the hell can I do?
One of the things I wanted to say before you couldn't hear me anymore, and I had to reboot here, is I about to say that one of the safest things to do is to keep on working. Don't retire. Keep on working.
Good advice. Yes, it is. Well, I'm in my retirement following what I've done for all my life. I never worked.
Yeah.
Of course, I had different ventures, and I've done always. I was my own master. I never reported to anybody, and I continue to do the same thing now.
Didn't you used to play the piano in cruise ships, Sasha?
Yes, I did.
That's work, wasn't it? And you can still do it.
I would consider,
You're as good as ever. You're not.
I would consider that as a paid vacation. That's all what it is, because I was busy hour and a half, 2 hours in the evening. I was free all day. I could spend my time with the passengers, going to islands, just do anything all I wanted. So if you call it a work,
Yeah.
I wish I would have that type of.
The happiest people are the people who don't work at all because they're doing what they enjoy. And if you enjoy it,
If you like what you're doing, it's not work. That's true.
that's been my experience. And if you don't like what you're doing, that is a horrible situation to be in, because it's every day. And Mondays are the worst, and Fridays are relief. But
most manufacturing, you just described manufacturing.
Yes, I agree.
Most manufacturing is like that. People who are into manufacturing,
I had those jobs.
Yeah, they love Fridays. They hate
killing.
Mondays.
Yeah.
And we should be replacing manufacturing with innovation, and
Yes.
that's possible. The United States is good at innovation. Canada is good at innovation. People who are involved in innovation are at it 24/7 because they love what they're doing.
Yeah, people put down Silicon Valley and they like to hate it, but that innovation has been they're buying it, they're loving it. All the things, all the products they're generating. I have an Apple phone. It tells me what to do. The reminders and the alarm goes off, and I have to go on Monitor Investing. Otherwise, I would never remember.
Of course, and you probably use your phone less for telephoning than for most other things. You
Absolutely.
take pictures with it, the reminder, you send text to people, and so on. So
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
a miracle today.
It's a computer and you can hold it in your hand, and you can do all of the things that you used to have.
That computer that you're holding in your hand is more powerful than the one that was in use when they went to the moon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And all the knowledge of mankind available to all mankind at all times of day. That's what we have now.
Yes.
Probably never been a better
And
time.
do you remember using maps in order to get to a destination, driving and having maps?
I'm old enough to remember that, yeah.
I haven't used a map. I haven't seen a map in a long time.
Absolutely.
Siri tells me where to go. My wife does, but mostly.
Jim, when's the last time you saw? When's the last time you had an atlas?
Yeah, well, I did. That was one of the things about wherever I was. I always had encyclopedias, an atlas, a dictionary, and a globe. And I don't need any of those things now.
Nope.
For decoration, a globe can be attractive.
True.
Yeah.
But Jim
They
and
were
Sasha,
out of date very quickly, though.
but Jim and Sasha and even Milan, I bet y'all had an abacus.
The slide rule, yes. An abacus, no.
No.
Well, I think we covered a lot of ground today, and we will continue after I will come back from holiday on, I believe, June 11th.
Oh, have a wonderful time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I will visit a lot of countries, a lot of cities, and hopefully we'll have a nice and successful trip.
I'm sure you will. My wife is right now on a walking trip with her sister. They started in France. They're now in Italy. It's
nice, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Have successful investment.
Sasha, before you leave, are you recording chess tomorrow or not recording chess tomorrow?
I will try to record. Are you available, Jim, tomorrow at noon?
Me, no.
No. Okay. Okay. I'll send the email to Ken Regan and.
Okay, and I'll send that to
You
you
might
later
well
on.
copy me if I can make it.
Yeah, I need link, Mark.
I'll send you a link. I'll send you a
Send me
link.
a link, please. Okay. So in this case, getting successful investments, and I will miss you, and I will see you on June 11th. Thank you very much.
Until we see each other again.
Bye bye.
Then we get together.
Thank you.